Welcome to this week's edition of World Crisis Radio. This is Webster Tarpley speaking to you from Washington, D.C. We're recording the program here on the afternoon of the 10th of April, 2015. Now, the campaign of the lunatic warmongers goes on, and we are seeing the Republican Party way out in front compared to the Democrats in terms of sheer bellicose, blustering insanity. And this time, we want to focus on a new face, somebody a little bit out of the ordinary, although he's already become surprisingly old. Tom Cotton, fascist senator from Arkansas. And of course, as we discussed last week, he thinks he's the new Metternich, that great expert of foreign policy in the first half of the 19th century, or the new Talleyrand, another great practitioner from the late 18th to the early 19th century, or maybe Bismarck, because he wants to wage some wars at least to get going. Cotton, a freshman, right? He's been in Washington for a couple of months, and if he can find these places on a map, he's lucky. But of course, he is an Ivy Leaguer. He's got a patina of intellectual pretensions to cover up that little Abner grin, I guess we can say. So Cotton, as of this week, is accusing Obama of holding up a false choice. Because Obama says, if you don't like my deal, you may get war. So what do you say to that? Oh, no, says Cotton. He says it's not that way at all. First of all, even if a military action were required, the president is trying to make you think it would be 150,000 heavily mechanized troops on the ground in the Middle East, as we saw in Iraq. That's simply not the case. Boy, is that passé. Boy, is that vieux jeu. It would be something more along the lines of what President Clinton did in December 1998 during Operation Desert Fox. Several days of air and naval bombing against Iraq's weapons of mass destruction facilities for exactly the same kind of behavior, for interfering with weapons inspectors and for disobeying Security Council resolutions. All we're asking is that the president simply be as tough in the protection of America's national security interest as Bill Clinton was. Hey, wait a minute. Disobeying Security Council resolutions, the champions, as far as I know, are the Israelis. 338, right? Get out of the occupied territories. How about India? Hold a referendum in Kashmir. But no, it's focusing on Iran. So this is from BuzzFeed. The only thing worse than an Iran with nuclear weapons would be an Iran with nuclear weapons that one or more countries attempted to prevent them from obtaining by military strikes. So this is Ryan Crocker, right? The various cast-offs, the mad dogs in striped pants from the State Department are now jockeying for position. They want to get promoted. Bolton thinks that he's a possible candidate for Secretary of State. And we remember Bolton called for the unilateral U.S. bombing of Iran. Mad Dog McCain is in there with his own demand that the Israelis knock over the negotiating table with unilateral nuclear action, dragging the United States willy-nilly into catastrophic conflict. I don't know how long they can keep this stuff up. Someday there's going to be a reckoning for this, and it won't be pretty. But in the meantime, the Republican warmongers are on the march. Let me just also point out, when our dear friend Cotton says, do it in the way that Clinton did in December 1998, Operation Desert Fox. This, of course, was the bombing of the U.S. embassies in East Africa, right? Kenya, Tanzania, I believe. Let's also remember the December 1998 follow-up to that, which was bombing the aspirin factory in Khartoum, Sudan. The aspirin factory caper seems to be what Cotton has in mind. Chris, also, we're living through it again. First time as tragedy, second time as first tragedy. Marx was wrong. Tragedy only gets worse, does not turn to farce at all. I'm sorry. You'll remember that famous hearing where General Shinseki said at least 300,000 troops to take over Iraq. And Wolfowitz and Feith and of course Rumsfeld went bonkers. No, that's much too much. Now Cotton is coming down he's citing the 150,000 as the max. Didn't used to be the max, and now he's saying no, it's going to be less than 150,000. So Cotton represents a step down from Wolfowitz and Feith. And of course, Iran is a much bigger country, right? It's 2.5 times the area and something like that in terms of the population. So who can save us from this? Well, we should also notice, you see Ayatollah Khamenei coming out and saying, look, you have to lift these sanctions as soon as the deal goes into effect. And now the U.S. Is screaming, the warmonger side is screaming about that. Well, look, you're having not just Cotton, but Bolton and McCain, the head of the Armed Services Committee, and all these other mad dogs screaming for war, for unilateral attack. You know, if that came out in the Tehran Times, or if that came out in some of the other Iranian papers, you'd be hearing about that. People do respond to these things, right? These are not just sort of opinion bombs that go off in the empty woods. They do have an echo around the world. So maybe Khamenei, my theory might be, maybe Khamenei is angry because of these war threats, right? Maybe he expected something else, or maybe not. I think he's probably realistic enough to know that these neocons are one-trick ponies. It's always war. McCain is always war. Bolton, war. That's all they know. Therefore, they are a serious existential threat to the future of the United States. Now, who could save us? Well, maybe little Rand Paul can save us. Rand Paul. Unfortunately, he can't. He gave his campaign kickoff, and we'll talk about this more later. Little Rand, strong in the support of the southern jurisdiction of the Scottish Rite Freemasons, Little Rand kicked it all off on the deck of an aircraft carrier, the Yorktown from World War II, I believe, left over there on the coast of South Carolina. Peace through strength. This is practically a parody of Mad Dog Bush the Younger and the famous mission accomplished event there on the deck of that other aircraft carrier. Now, however, let's go into we got to go into the policy weeds a little bit and see what the various poobahs and pundits are saying. How about Krauthammer? Krauthammer comes out every Friday, usually, in the Washington Post. Here it is, Friday, April 10th, and here's Krauthammer. So this is his column, The Iran Deal, The Anatomy of a Disaster. So it's all bad. Iran's entire nuclear infrastructure is kept intact. It will be used, of course, for radioactive isotopes for medical purposes, but this does not impress Krauthammer. He's an MD, but of course he's a shrink, so maybe that's not his department. Back in a minute on World Crisis Radio. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Let me take just a minute and direct your attention to a new publication that has come out on the scene. If you go to the various manifestations on the Internet of the Tax Wall Street Party and the United Front Against Austerity, that would be a Facebook page, that would be a page on the internet, you will see that over the past 4 to 5 weeks, we have been publishing a daily morning briefing, which is in its initial phases. It will become more developed as time goes on, God willing. And it is basically two components. There is a lead to the briefing, which is sometimes an editorial statement, or sometimes it's a couple of short intelligence items from our characteristic point of view, obviously, and trying to manifest that intellectual superiority without which it's certainly going to be hard to take on organizations with thousands of times our numbers, thousands of times or tens of thousands of times our money, or maybe billions of times our money, intellectual quality, and a clear evaluation, right? In terms, one person giving us feedback, this is a very valuable thing because it helps you to understand the world day by day. Gives you a conceptual framework. You can fit the individual news items in there. So we've got a lead of the briefing. We've got a series of short news items. The whole thing is a 3, 4, 5 pages at most. And then an operations bulletin, which allows you to keep up with the activities of the Tax Wall Street Party and its co-thinkers and its allies around the world, from Greece to Moscow to Australia, Latin America, you name it. This is an international movement. It has to be. And we're seeing from Syriza, the biggest single problem Syriza has is they were national only. They did not have that vital international dimension, which they needed to have. Well, we're trying to provide that as we go along. So that's the daily morning briefing. If you're interested in a trial subscription, it's easy to do. Just send an email to Tax Wall Street Party. That's all one block of text. Tax Wall Street Party. Everything is lowercase, no spaces, no dots, no hyphens, no nothing. Tax Wall Street Party at gmail.com. Tax Wall Street Party at gmail.com, and we can put you on for a trial subscription. I don't know how long we'll be able to do this, so send us an email and put subscribe in the subject line, because time is limited. We don't have time to open up every one of them, but if it's clear where it's coming from and if it says subscribe, then you will be the happy recipient of this daily briefing. And it's actually, I think it's quite well done. And this is something destined to grow. It reflects that the Tax Wall Street Party and the UFAA are seriously concerned about mass political education, seriously concerned about having a worldwide perspective, seriously concerned about having a worldwide organizational presence, as much as can be done. There is no chauvinism here. There is the idea that if you let yourself be trapped in one country, no matter how big it is, that won't be enough. And maybe you can ask Syriza about that, because that's their biggest drawback, as they of course are doing the best they can to fight the IMF and the European Central Bank. But it's very hard when you have that Council of Europe, you have that Euro group of finance ministers, and you're the only one. If you had 2 or 3 more, the situation would become completely different. So, Tax Wall Street Party at gmail.com, put subscribe into the subject line, and you'll find that you're going to rely on it. You're going to find you can't live without it. All right, so we were talking about Krauthammer, the great neocon intellectual, in some ways the dean of the neocons, I guess. So he doesn't like this idea that the Fordow facility, the centrifuges will keep going with xenon, zinc, and germanium, not uranium, and only to save people from cancer. Radioactive isotopes. No, that's no good, says Krauthammer. you get the idea. The Parchin weaponization facility has not been opened. Fordow was, of course, not revealed the way he wanted. So what he goes through is this idea that if there are so-called violations of this thing, it will go to the Security Council, while China, Russia, and sundry anti-Western countries will act as Iran's lawyer. There will be no snapback. He says one of the features of this that the Obama people have posted about is the snapback of the sanctions. Well, there won't be any snapback because it took, as he says, a decade to weave Russia, China, and the Europeans into the current sanctions infrastructure. And once you snap it, it won't snap back. This is an interesting question. I would call on the Russian Federation and the People's Republic of China to immediately dump this idiotic sanctions regime. Get rid of it. That was a shameful thing for both of those countries to accept that in the first place. Are we nuts? I guess we can thank on the Russian side, it really comes down to Russia because they have the political leadership. You can't blame that on Putin. You can blame that on Medvedev. So we can say thank you, Medvedev, for what happened in Libya. And now you can also attribute to Medvedev how Russia ever got into these sanctions. I remember, I think I was still going to Russia today. That is, those years are gone at the moment. But I believe it was April 1st, 2010, that an important step along this road was taken, and I think you'll find it somewhere in the archives of Russia today that they asked me to comment on what about the Medvedev presidency of Russia saying that he's open to join in sanctions against Iran, and I said I can't believe that. I think that's an April Fool's joke. So we'll see. Oh, and now we're going to get one more important document, actually the basis for Krauthammer, which is the Kissinger-Schultz essay from earlier in the week. Back in a minute. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. So the learned essay by Charles Krauthammer, the neocon shrink, The Anatomy of a Disaster. Now, he stands on the shoulders of giants. I'm sure he would agree. He's citing in this thing the essay by Henry Kissinger, who needs no introduction, and George Shultz. Remember, he was Secretary of Labor. He was Secretary of the Treasury. He was Secretary of State. Quite a resume for George Shultz. That was in the Wall Street Journal on April 8th, and we're going to look at that in just a second here. But Krauthammer, it goes out of his way to quote the spirit of Kissinger and Shultz, which is that if the U.S. then comes forward whining that there's some violation by Iran, then, as Kissinger and Shultz point out, we, the U.S., will be fought every step of the way, leaving the United States and not Iran as the isolated power. Now let's go over here to the Wall Street Journal, Wednesday, April 8th. The Iran deal and its consequences. I have to say before we get into the text, the common ground of both the neocon and this other sort of old school traditionalist realist version is they all talk about capability. This is the key to the whole thing. You listen to Obama, he's got the sense to say bomb. Iran should not have a bomb. Okay, these other guys talk about capability. What's the difference? Well, a bomb is a bomb is a bomb. A capability is much vaguer, and it may have nothing to do with any bomb. Once you have a bomb, then you built a bomb. But if you have a capability, you may be planning to do radioisotope research and cure cancer and not have a bomb. So this is the absolute watershed. So don't let yourself be fooled. You get into arguments about this stuff. Distinguish carefully. Bomb, one thing. Capability, different. Not the same thing. And here's the way Kissinger and Schultz do it. Here we are. Negotiations by the U.S. and Iran. Negotiations that began 12 years ago as an international effort to prevent an Iranian capability, there it is, capability, to develop a nuclear arsenal, are ending with an agreement that concedes this very capability. Concedes this capability, although short of the full capacity in the first 10 years. In other words, he says this is a limited capability. Again, the problem with capability is this. There are 20, 30 countries in the world that have the capability. It's not possible to know how many of them really have nuclear weapons assembled or nuclear weapons in two parts that are kept in separate rooms but could be assembled in 30 minutes by a company of engineers. This we don't know. Essentially, having the capability means, are you modernized? Do you have a modern labor force? Do you have modern technology? Do you have a full set economy? Have you got some centrifuges? Okay. Have you got a power reactor you can use? Have you got a research reactor? All of those things, when you put them together, add up to a capability. The attempt to deprive anybody of the capability is the equivalent of saying you will be backward, underdeveloped, poor, wretched, and scorned forever. It cannot be accepted. Most self-respecting countries would rather fight than put up with that. And, of course, in the Middle East, we're also told proliferation. This is another big theme here. What happens if the Middle East is proliferated? Ask Kissinger and Schultz. Well, Kissinger wrote the book, didn't he? Nuclear Weapons and Foreign Policy, 1957. What happens when you have several powers is you have deterrence. And he says, yeah, but it's many-sided. As it was. At a certain point, we had the United States, the Soviet Union, nuclear powers. And we had Britain. Then we had France. This was not the same thing. Then we had China. Then we had others. So I don't see it. They talk about proliferation as if that were, by definition, the end of the world. And, of course, the Saudis, we know, have been trying to get their hands on Pakistani weapons, a Pakistani guarantee of a Pakistani nuclear umbrella, so that Pakistan would bomb Iran if Iran bombed Saudi Arabia. Again, long Pakistani border with Iran, Shiite minority inside Pakistan, and this also works. This works in both directions. What you will get is a regime of deterrence, and it may be unstable. That's somehow not something you can easily avoid in today's world. Why didn't you neocons think of that when you attacked Iraq and then Libya? That was the best object lesson, that the United States will attack anybody who doesn't have a nuclear weapon. Therefore, anybody who wants to survive had better get one. Now, I don't know whether that lesson was received in Iran or not. Anyhow, the problem here is that Nixon and Kissinger and Schultz, both of them worked for Nixon. If the world is to be spared even worse turmoil, the United States must develop a strategic doctrine for the region. Stability requires an active American role. For Iran to be a valuable member of the international community, it has to accept restraints on its ability to destabilize. Now, one of the things, they're whining mainly they're not happy. They don't see the ability to cooperate. Yeah, but we just had it, didn't we? How about the fall of Tikrit? What was the lesson of the fall of Tikrit? We can now say a little bit more about this. We knew that the people organizing the attack on Tikrit knew that if they gave that information to the U.S. Central Command or the Pentagon or anybody in that command structure, that they would be betrayed, that ISIS would be warned, because we have General Allen and we have General Petraeus who practically say that you've got to cooperate with Sunni militaries or paramilitaries or forces. It means ISIS. It means ISIS is a creature of the U.S., the British, the Saudis, the French, this usual cast of characters. The Israelis undoubtedly a hand in it. So the lesson of Tikrit is that this attack now more and more it becomes out that the assault was planned by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and they stipulated, don't tell the U.S. We can do better without them. We'll provide our own air cover, and don't tell them. And then the U.S. insisted, once it was clear that this was going to succeed, the U.S. piled on with air attacks. And the air attacks are controversial because there are some sources that will tell you that the air attacks were actually more interested in trying to assassinate additional commanders of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard than they were with actually taking out some of these ISIS targets. So there is a cooperation. In other words, if you're interested in maintaining civilization in that part of the world, you can do all kinds of things with Iran. But if you want to support ISIS and mass murder and chaos, then the Iranians are not as compliant. Back in a minute. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley speaking from Washington, D.C. The cherry blossoms here are nearing their peak, which means that various kinds of pollen are also nearing their peak. Now, we got to make some points rather rapidly. The lesson of Tikrit, therefore, was this. The Iranians were interested in deflating the myth of ISIS invincibility. The U.S., of course, at least Allen and Petraeus and their faction, because that's what it is, they were interested in puffing up the invincibility of ISIS, so the Iranians figured, cut them out of it. By the way, now, we've had all kinds of things going on. A Secret Service official, supervisor, has been involved in looks like a sexual assault. That's number one. We had one employee of the Census Bureau here in Suitland, Maryland. Person killed here last night, and that whole neighborhood shut down for several hours. It was a kind of repetition of the attack on the Navy Yard offices a year or two ago. This time smaller, but same idea. And generally speaking, the entire array on the White House and the Secret Service, those are warnings. That you give another example, right? Many buildings, key buildings in downtown Washington, D.C., were shut down by a power stoppage this week. And it allegedly comes from a small transfer station way down in southern Maryland, and the way that things kicked in. Whoever did that in the system, and they wanted to give a pointed message to a limited number of people, right? The White House was blacked out. The various Smithsonian buildings were blacked out. Some subway stations were blacked out. What was that? Well, I would say it's probably a message from people who don't like the Iranian deal. Which ones? I don't know. But Petraeus, Allen, those people, that's where you can start. The U.S. invisible government, parallel government, deep state, that's who's sending messages to Obama, and that ought to be pretty clear. And they've got the Republicans in Congress working with the invisible government. The people like Boehner and McConnell are the faces, the masks worn by this shadowy, invisible government entity behind the scenes. Now, concerning Ukraine and related matters, just to say a few words about this. Yarosh, the fascist leader, the leader of right sector, is now going to be even more intimately integrated into the military structure of the Kiev fascist government. Yarosh is an unreconstructed, impudent Nazi and fascist, and he's now a part of that government. So there is no way around it. Of course, in the meantime, we have Poroshenko saying, well, of course, he's really a moderate. He's interested in federalism. Well, if you're putting in a Nazi and talking about federalism, I'm afraid not. Maybe Poroshenko's idea is to have if you go back to the Gauleiter system, right, something like this, we have these intendants sent in, right, with dictatorial life and death powers. Notice also in the post-Charlie Hebdo era, we have the case of a distinguished Canadian musician, a creative artist. Her name is Valentina Lisitsa, Lisitsa. She was going to have two solo. She was the soloist with the Toronto Symphony Orchestra for this coming week, and she was fired. At least she was ousted from these two solo first piano engagements because she is critical of the Kiev fascist clique. And that would have been Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2 and some other music. So what's going on here? How about the Charlie Hebdo era of free speech over there? This is now the reactionary Stephen Harper. So watch out for all that. Now, there's an interesting conference going on, the Paris Economic Conference. We can't talk too much about this, but Joseph Stiglitz, Robert Johnson, these are the Piketty people. This is Piketty's charge. Piketty's charge is going on in Paris right now, and they were on France 24, very interesting. And they say, look, the economics profession has struck out. We ran the ship onto the rocks, but now they're trying to regroup. They're trying to save their jobs, in other words. They're trying to hang on to their posts by saying, now we understand the main issue is inequality. Yeah, wait a minute. The breakdown crisis did not come directly from inequality. It caused a lot of inequality. This was a matter of derivatives speculation. And the fact that there's no upturn is because the derivatives are there. Wall Street is not taxed, and the Federal Reserve serves the bankrupt, kited, toxic derivatives still held by the zombie bankers and hedge fund hyenas, and not the entire economy. So they're trying to refurbish their image. They talk about Occupy. They talk about the 99%. They talk about de Tocqueville's Ancien Régime and the Revolution. They say that's a bestseller in China right now. Stiglitz's book is The Price of Inequality. Wait a minute, boys. And Piketty, too. How about this? I want to hear one concrete measure, one, that you are willing to advocate, but seriously. You guys were on France 24 for half an hour today. Marcus Carlson, I think the guy's name was. And you didn't recommend anything. You guys are Keynesians. Can't you at least support the Wall Street sales tax? Can't you please be in favor of some one concrete measure? They say, oh, it's a wonderful victory that everybody realizes there's a crisis. I can take you to the Bowery and find 500 people who will tell you, yeah, there's a depression. But Stiglitz and Johnson say, but, of course, we disagree on what to do about it. Yeah, right. The McConnell-Boehner answer is to lie about it. right? To blame unions, to blame the federal government. God knows. This will not do. Stiglitz, Johnson, Heckman, Piketty, all of you. We want to hear one concrete measure. I think the line of least resistance is the Wall Street sales tax. Make it a 1% Wall Street sales tax, including derivatives, including a beefed up LaSalle Street tax, and use that at least to combat the crisis of the government budgets, the U.S. federal budget, and so forth across the world. Now, obviously, we could go on then and demand the nationalization of the central banks as banks for the entire economy, as national banks, not just bankers' banks. But maybe that's too much for these people. I don't want to overload them. One of their writers, if you go to their website, is a guy called Richard Vague, V-A-G-U-E. So Richard Vague, why don't you guys rely less on the vague theory and a little bit more on the specifics, and worry a little bit less about your jobs and the fact that you're discredited, because you are, and try to rehabilitate yourself and redeem yourself by demanding that Wall Street pay, that LaSalle Street pay. Poor Chuy, Garcia lost to Rahm. We told you this was coming. You could see this a mile away, and we did, and we told you. Chuy refused to even mention a transaction tax or the LaSalle Street tax or, heavens to Betsy, the Wall Street sales tax of 1%. So down he goes to ignominious defeat. You cannot trust the Democratic Party. Wisconsin has learned it, and now Chicago has learned it again. They now ride under the yoke of Ramposo. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. This is Webster Tarpley reporting to you from Washington, D.C., and we are once more lucky to be able to go to our observer in Athens, Greece. This is the unbeatable Michael Chiotinis, who has called all of the main turning points in this crisis correctly. That is to say, the Greek government against the Troika, the International Monetary Fund, the European Central Bank, pardon me, and the European Commission. So this week we had a big event. We had Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras went to Moscow on Wednesday and Thursday. So let's see what we can find out about what happened and what didn't happen in that trip. Michael, welcome.
Hello, Webster. Hello to all your listeners. Now, let me go straight to the point. Some say that the Tsipras trip to Moscow was a ploy for leverage, a sort of blackmail against the West, having to do with Greece's negotiations with its creditors. Okay, the EU and the IMF, and by extension the US. But I don't think that's true. You see, Greek farmers are suffering right now because of Russian counter-sanctions against European countries, including Greece. The problems of Greece are very strong, very serious problems, and the bilateral relations between Greece and Russia have nothing to do with financing the Greek problem or blackmailing the West. The Tsipras visit to Moscow opens a complete new chapter in Greco-Russian relations. Greece is effectively becoming an energy hub. This is an economic but also a political upgrade for Greece. And it shows that Greece is an independent country. Okay, it can form its own alliances. It can develop relations with any country in the world, and it's not a debt colony. So there's a difference between Tsipras blackmailing the West and Tsipras declaring that Greece is an independent country. You see the difference, I hope.
Michael, let's just take this apart a little bit and bore into it. First of all, the Greek agricultural sector and maybe some idea of Greek exports in general right now, but the main idea is that Russia has a food embargo against the European Union. It's a counter-sanction. So what kinds of things does Greece export that are now being interfered with by this?
Agricultural products by 90%. 90% of all exports.
Which ones? Tell us that.
It's strawberries and those kind of oranges.
I've read peaches. Olives.
Yes, of course. Any of those things.
So it's Mediterranean and fruits.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a big deal, right? There still is quite an agricultural sector. Wine, I suppose, right? Wine?
Yes. It's a huge sector, and it's 90% of all exports from Greece to Russia. And trade between the two countries have declined from last year by 40%. That's a huge thing. The Greek farmers are destroyed effectively. So,
all right. Can we now let's move on to the second point you were making, right? The energy hub. What does that energy hub look like? Are we talking about pipelines? How does it look?
Yes. So the proposed new pipeline is what they call the Greek pipeline. That's Tsipras decided to call it that, as opposed to the Turkish stream. It's an extension to the Turkish stream, and but it's called the Greek pipeline, and it will begin at the Greek border with Turkey, and then at the border with the former Yugoslavic Republic of Macedonia, or Macedonia, as you know. There's a name dispute between Greece and Macedonia over its name because Macedonia used to be an ancient Greek territory, and in part, the north part of Macedonia is now occupied. Is now what is the country of Macedonia? So
okay, so we of course we remember with our strong classical orientation Philip of Macedonia, his son Alexander the Great. Right, we're not going to forget them. And just to be polite, what is the Greek way to refer to this country there?
The Greek way to refer to this country is former Yugoslavic Republic of Macedonia. So, and we are in negotiations, and Greece is prepared to backtrack and agree on the name North Macedonia. So it's that's the dispute. That's the name dispute.
The other thing we want to bear in mind is that there was an attempted CIA coup against the current leader of that country, Gruevski, and now we see why, because this is a way to go around those turbulent characters in Ukraine, for example, and once it goes from Greece into Macedonia, it could go much further. It could go to Italy, I think somebody was saying, right? So that would get you, once you're in Italy, you're in the whole Western European gas distribution system.
Yes. So this Greek pipeline will begin at the Greek border with Turkey and enter Macedonia. That will, of course, bypass Ukraine. That's the whole point of it. But it's the need for such pipeline, the need for the Turkish stream, an extension of which is the Greek pipeline, came because the South Stream was cancelled. The South Stream was a proposed pipeline bringing natural gas from Bulgaria, and Bulgaria was the one that suspended this whole project. Also, Papandreou, you all know Papandreou, did everything he could to himself to suspend the project, but the Bulgarians did it first. So that was it. that was the South Stream. It was cancelled. Now, it would have been much preferable for Greece to have the South Stream and not be dependent on Turkey.
Right.
I don't know what problems could this cause to Greece in regards to Turkey, but right now, to be honest, the government will celebrate even this development,
Right.
because it's eager to have any sort of income and investment in Greek territory. So,
Can I just add one thing, Michael? My comment on Tsipras in Moscow is, I hope, and I actually believe, that Tsipras and Putin would have discussed what's a worst case scenario, a fallback option, in case Berlin goes crazy and just, go bonkers, and Greece needs to fall back on something. What would it be, financially, economically? And I've also had reports in the past that Tsipras had been discussing what to do in the eventuality of a NATO attempt to intervene and interfere in Greek internal affairs. Would there be some kind of moral or other support that Russia might give? I think responsible statesmen would have had to discuss those things simply as options or clouds on the horizon. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. This is Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C., here among the cherry blossoms and the pollen. But we were hoping to get Reverend Edward Pinkney to come on. Remember, he couldn't join us last week because of family visits connected to the Easter holiday. But we're now approaching this crucial hearing in court on the 14th of April 14th, in the Berrien County court there in St. Joseph, Michigan. But we're very fortunate to have the official spokesman of the Pinkney family, and also the man who is directing the legal defense and political defense, the Free Reverend Pinkney Committee, and that's Larry Pinkney. So we want to welcome Larry and a rundown on how the mobilization is going and what more we ought to do. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you very, very much, Webster. I'm deeply appreciative. Indeed, there are things that need to be done. The first thing first of all, let me say thank you and your audience, not just you, obviously, but the many listeners out there who are paying attention to this struggle. Let me just say right off the bat, as it were, that as you mentioned, the hearing, quote unquote, is coming up for Reverend Edward Pinkney on Tuesday, the 14th of April. It is imperative, I repeat, imperative, that we have a huge turnout at the Berrien County Courthouse. As you mentioned, it's in St. Joseph, even though Reverend Pinkney was moved on, not in St. Joseph, but in Benton Harbor. But that's another story. The point is that we're asking everyone to spread the word, number one, and to be there, if at all possible. If you can be there, be there. Let folks know that Reverend Edward Pinkney is not alone. I can say this definitively. I can say that Reverend Pinkney's struggle, and it's not just Reverend Edward Pinkney, it's a struggle throughout Michigan and throughout this nation. It happens at this moment that Reverend Edward Pinkney has become extremely symbolic in this struggle because he is going up, it's sort of like a David and Goliath struggle. He is going up against the infamous, insidious, avaricious Whirlpool Corporation, which is headquartered in none other than Benton Harbor, Michigan, or I call it really Benton Harbor, Mississippi. But anyway, the point is that all of us need to get this information out, get people there, contact the media. I can tell you that Reverend Pinkney's case has been spread all over the world, in Denmark, Norway, Finland, Sweden, Accra, Ghana, Lagos, Nigeria, Finland, Russia. I could go on, but I don't want to take up time doing that. The point is that we need to effectively spread this word and let Whirlpool Corporation, which, by the way, it's a thief, let's be honest. And that's why they want to really shut Reverend Edward Pinkney up, because he stood up to Whirlpool Corporation's thieving of the land from the people in Benton Harbor, the huge loss of jobs, the thieving of the water, and yes, water, W-A-T-E-R, from the people of Benton Harbor. And that should not surprise the listeners. All you have to do is look at Detroit and what's going on there, which happens to be in the same state of Michigan. So please, please, turn out enough, and be there at the Berrien County Courthouse. Reverend Pinkney refers to the machinations of what is going on in Benton Harbor, Berrien County, Michigan, as a criminal enterprise. And he specifically said to me, Larry, make sure you tell people that this is a criminal enterprise. So I want to be clear about that. This is a criminal enterprise against all of us. I don't care what your color or agenda is, black, white, brown, red, or yellow. The bottom line is we are being blood-sucked. Repeat, blood-sucked, economically and socially and politically by the corporate government, by these corporations who control our government, which means we don't. And as Benito Mussolini, the fascist, former fascist dictator of Italy said, he defined fascism as being specifically the coming together of corporations and the government. So I ask you, my brothers and sisters, what do we have in this country? We do not have democracy. We have hypocrisy. We have corporate plutocracy. We have fascism. 21st century fascism. You might not see the boot marching in the street. Then again, some of you who might be conscious do understand that there are indeed boots marching in the street. But all of us are affected by this. We need to not only stop it and expose what is happening in Benton Harbor, Berrien County, Michigan, but we need to reverse it. I repeat, reverse it. So I'm going to keep quiet for now, Brother Webster.
Larry, let me ask you one thing. What time of day should people get there? We're trying to get our Chicago local organized so they show up, and anybody who's anywhere within driving range. But what time of day? When should they get there?
Try to be there by 12 noon. The hearing at last report, unless these fascists change it at the last minute, the hearing at last report was to be at 1. So be there as early as you can, even if you can be there at 9 o'clock in the morning. So if they make a last-minute change, there'll still be a huge turnout. That's my respectful reply, Brother Webster.
Okay, what I repeat every time is we know from experienced lawyers the only hope of maintaining this frame up is that the defense, us, we are ground down, we give up, we're demoralized, we dry up, blow away. No, we're going to keep coming back, and therefore come back this coming Tuesday, the 14th of April, and be there as early in the morning as you can, but before noon. We'll see you soon, Larry. We're hoping for good news for next week, okay?
We're going to keep fighting. Thank you.
Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. Now we have some really exciting news. The British general election, the election of the House of Commons, Parliament, and thence of the next British government, Her Majesty's government, Prime Minister, Chancellor of the Exchequer, all the rest, that is now less than a month away, and we are delighted to be joined by Stuart Hooper of Essex, the county of Essex in Great Britain, who is now the first anti-austerity candidate on the ballot in that election. And I say the only austerity candidate, the first and only, because he's against the tax austerity, fiscal austerity, budget austerity, cuts, wage austerity. He's against the energy austerity, which is embraced by the loony left. So welcome to Stuart Hooper, officially on the ballot, and a lot of people listening to this program have been part of that. So we want to thank them right away. But let's go to Essex and hear from Stuart. Welcome, Stuart.
Hi, Webster. Thank you for having me back on the show.
That's tremendous.
And yes, as you say, I am now the only true anti-austerity candidate on the ballot over here in the UK in the upcoming election. So I'd like to extend a huge thanks to your listeners who did support that effort to help me acquire the funds to submit all the paperwork. And yeah, without them, this would not be possible. Right now I'm moving into a campaigning phase. So I'm trying to produce a leaflet. Now we have a really interesting and useful service over here that entitles every candidate on the ballot to have one piece of election mail sent to every single property in their district. But obviously they don't pay for the cost of producing that mail. So for me, I have the opportunity to send a piece of election mail with all of my anti-austerity points, particularly the nationalisation of the Bank of England and the 1% City of London sales tax, out to over 40,000 properties in my district. So in order to do that, I'm currently raising funds to produce those leaflets. So you can go to my Facebook page, which is Stuart Hooper for Parliament. Just search for that on Facebook. Or facebook.com/Hooper4MP, HOOPERFORMP. And there we have a new fundraiser where anybody in the world can contribute a value of up to 49 Great British pounds. Anything over that count as an official donation, which I don't have the capacity to deal with anyway. So yeah, anybody can help in this effort, and hopefully a lot of small contributions can build up and we can get thousands of these flyers out to everybody.
Let me just ask you for more general intelligibility, how many dollars would that be on a day like today?
I was looking yesterday, and it would be around...
You want to figure that in euros too, because we cover the waterfront. We go all around.
Yes.
Maybe we can both figure that out as we go on. Let me see if I can. If you can tell us more about your campaign, I'm going to try to do pound in dollars.
One estimate I saw would be around $1,300 to hit every single of those 40,000 properties. But even
for each individual, as of today, a British pound sterling equals 1.46 US dollars. So a little bit less than $1.50 per pound. Keep it at 1.46, and you'll be in the range, right? Just to get an idea, because you don't want to exceed that minimum. That's a legal minimum. So keep it below, but just below. And let's also look at the pound in euros. We'll do the pound in yen if we have time. Pound in euros, 1.38 euros per pound. 1.38 euros equals 1 pound sterling. So that gives you an idea. So go right up to below the limit.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully, as I said, if the more small contributions we get, they'll all add up to a decent total overall.
All right, so the campaign, any events planned? Any places where people can come and meet you that we could announce today? Events, gatherings,
actually,
town halls.
Yes,
on the hustings.
There would be a hustings on Monday, actually. And let me just find the details for that. This is what another candidate sent me, an independent candidate who is actually he used to be running on the UKIP ticket, but he was expelled for something. But yeah, he told me about it. It is at Monday at 4 p.m. at the Papworth Trust in Basildon. So there will be a hustings there. I'm waiting for full details on that. So
can you repeat the name of that Papua?
Papworth.
Papworth. There we go.
Yes.
Sorry.
Papworth Trust.
Papworth Trust. What is the Papworth Trust?
I am not sure what the Papworth Trust is. These details have only just come to me literally within the last couple of hours, so I'm waiting for the full details.
Okay, people, if you're interested in meeting the only anti-austerity candidate, this is anti-austerity tous azimut, right? Against all kinds of austerity. Some of these lefties are going to say we're against that wage austerity, but then they're going to get you with energy and vice versa. But no, here it's implacable opposition and effective opposition because it shows ways to pay for things. So the Papworth Trust.
Yeah, absolutely, Webster. And I think the platform that we need to be pushing internationally is a new deal for the entire world. So we need to bring this fully and truly anti-austerity message to governments around the world and show them that it is possible to do this. Right now in the UK, there is no anti-austerity opposition that has any real program other than saying, oh, we're just going to do smart cuts instead, or we're just going to say we can fund all these things but have no way of actually funding them. So this needs to become a truly international issue, and I know that's something that you are particularly passionate about, getting this message out internationally. So hopefully I can inspire others around the world to stand up and do the same on a similar platform.
Absolutely. Now, I'm reading that the Papworth Trust is a charity that supports senior citizens and disabled persons. They have 5,000 beneficiaries every year of their services. So that sounds like a worthy cause. And the budget constraints and the funding constraints that they face, of course, there's your 1% tax on the City of London and all those derivatives.
Yes, exactly. And the disabled are people that are suffering immensely at the moment under austerity cuts. They're having their benefits sanctioned for all kinds of ridiculous reasons, which has led, unfortunately, to people committing suicide. So the disabled and the elderly, some of the most vulnerable people in our society, they need to be protected, not cut out of the budget.
Absolutely. So, again, I urge people, the Papworth Trust in Basildon, and your constituency, once again, is Basildon and Thurrock. Am I right?
South Basildon and East Thurrock, yeah.
South Basildon and East Thurrock. This is at Monday at 4 p.m. at the Papworth Trust. Stuart, I hope you're going to have some pictures for us. I hope you get a friendly reporter to write that up briefly so we can put that out. Beam it around the globe. There's a real fight against austerity in Great Britain for the first time in a long time. Hats off to you, Stuart. Congratulations. Bye-bye. We'll see you next week. And now we'll roll on with our final segment, World Crisis Radio. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Our show has now gotten very quickly to the final segment, but we still have time to look in on a dramatic four-way primary that's going to be held in Monroe County, Pennsylvania, the area of Stroudsburg, the Poconos, the Delaware Water Gap, and this is the county commissioner. And as people know, we are very sympathetic to the candidacy of Adam Rodriguez, who is contending as one of the four in that primary. So let's go without further ado to Monroe County, Pennsylvania, and Adam Rodriguez, candidate for county commissioner. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Webster. I really appreciate you giving me this forum to, reach out to your audience and explain to them exactly what's going on out here in Northeast PA, because, it really is a really important race. The commissioner's position, is a very powerful position in the county, in that the county's 170,000 people. That's what's considered a fourth classification in the state of Pennsylvania, in a range of 1 to 8. So, I would basically be governing up to 170,000 people on a board of 3 other commissioners. So, again, right now we're in the middle of this primary challenge here, and it's a little unexpected. We didn't really expect. I have a running mate. His name is Andre Reams. We're running together as a team, and we plan on doing that all the way through the general election. We didn't expect to be primaried. There was one candidate that was a former state representative who would have been probably the hardest person to beat in a primary. He decided not to run and basically said, from a party standpoint, I want you to follow up with your support between Adam and Andre. And next thing you know, about a week later, or even less than that, 2 other candidates popped up out of nowhere, and both Andre and I have our suspicions that the Republicans are basically funding some of their campaigns and promoting them, because they don't want the 2 unknown factors. They don't want the 2 unknown candidates on that board. The fact Monroe County has maybe a 5 to 7% population of African American and another 8% population Hispanic. And, part of it is they don't want, they don't want minorities on that board, let alone 2 people that have been there for maybe 10. I've been there for 10, 11 years, and Andre's been there for about 5 years. And, they want some people that have been there for 3, 4, 5 generations and come from, families that they know, And you know what? They don't like the fact that these guys are coming in, they're going to shake things up. So they went out, they drug up these 2 other candidates, one of which is very, very amenable and friendly to the Republican state senator that's there, who's the local power boss in the area. And the other one has been openly admitted that he supported the last commissioner, the last Republican elected commissioner. So these aren't real Democrats as far as Democrats go. We know how far the spectrum has swung to the right. We need to counter that with a very strong left. You want to call it progressive. I call it people that are concerned about the politics of the pocketbook politics. Okay, that's my main focus. And they don't, they don't want the 2 of us there. They want to bring in these guys that they know. So we're in the middle of this primary, and we were caught a little flat-footed because we didn't think we were going to be primary. So I think the main thing I want to stress to your audience is we need funds, especially, myself. Andre's been playing this for a lot longer than I have, but to get out of this primary right now, I need a lawn sign campaign. I need possibly even some cable spots, which I've done some pricing for, and my team has done some pricing for, because I have a team of people. I have a campaign manager. I have at least, people that I'm working with from the Democratic Party that are out, working hard for me. I have some people that are really committed, and it's great. I do have support from within the party, which is great. But that being said, I'm still going to need to get up some money here, and that means using them for palm cards, which I want to be able to go do some. I got to have literature that I got to hand out to people. Right now, I've maybe raised about $1,000 in total so far, maybe even less than that. And I've had to use that for expenditures to pay for some other fundraisers that I've done. I have bought some other things, some literature, but that doesn't really go that far. So I need money for, like I said, the palm cards, walking around. Lawn signs are going to cost about $2,000 with the stand. I need about 1,000 of them. I'm going to have to pay for an upcoming fundraiser that we're going to do. I need money to put down for some food. We're having, we're actually got someone, this has been great, we got someone to virtually donate, food from, a well-known local, franchise, kind of like the lawns of like an Outback Steakhouse kind of thing. So they're going to donate food for us for about 150 people, because we're planning on having about 150 people at a banquet. And then someone even actually donated the hall for us as well. A pretty well-known, former, township supervisor has been kind enough to lend us the hall. He's given basically.
All right, so you have volunteers, you have a base in the community, you have local businessmen on your side. How about the people who are not there? We can't expect the Koch brothers to come in and help you. So how about people of goodwill? Where can they go?
Well, if people want to help my campaign and donate money, they can go to my website, which is Adam for Commissioner. It's adamforcommissioner.com, AdamForCommissioner.com. And there's a donate button there. It's a PayPal button. And there they can see a little bit of my platform. We're still building that site, but it's going to be filled out come the primary for sure. That's the main way that they can get in touch with me or donate. If they want to go to my Facebook page, it's also, I think it's Adam for Commissioner as well. That's on Facebook, and you can connect with me there, and I can point in the right direction if you want. So that's basically the main way we're trying to get donations from people that are out of the area. Like I said, we're doing this fundraiser at the end of the month, and we're trying to get 150 people, and that means going through the voter rolls, going through my old walk list, going out and meeting people again, just knocking on doors and saying, "Hey, make sure you come out to vote for me. I have a really great plan to fix the county here. I'm going to be a fighter because I know what we should be getting from the federal government and the state government, and we're not getting anywhere near that to invest in infrastructure building." And along the lines of my discussion with your audience a couple of weeks ago with maybe, bringing in rail, definitely bringing in interstate rail and beyond. We need to have maglev and high-speed rail coming through the gap at some point, too. So,
but of course, this is not pie in the sky. This is an immediate improvement in the everyday lives of people. If you could just activate that rail link, the many people who commute from there into New York City, their lives could be better within a few months.
Right. 3 hours. It takes 3 hours nearly each way to get into the city, and people make that commute on a daily basis. And just think, if you could bring in rail, all of the accompanied halo effect of businesses growing up around these rail lines, and then people would actually be in the city in an hour and a half or an hour. Rather than having to suffer through the traffic on Route 80. Route 80's traffic is horrendous. It's well known. It's infamous for being very, very congested. They call it Slave 80 because people have to spend so much time on it just getting to work. And this is due to mismanagement and poor people with very poor vision.
Okay, so it's AdamForCommissioner.com.
Yes.
AdamForCommissioner.com. I urge people to step up and help an obviously meritorious candidate dealing with a corrupt machine. See you next week, Adam.
All right, take care. I'll see you. Bye.
Bye-bye.